When my daughter-in-law left, the waiter leaned in and whispered, quiet enough that only I could hear. "Ma'am," he said, glancing at my untouched glass. "She slipped something into your drink." For 3 seconds, the chandeliers above me didn't shimmer. They burned, and every sparkle felt like a warning. I didn't gasp. I didn't stand up and scream her name. I just stared at the glass, amber wine swirling in crystal, catching the light like molten gold. It looked harmless. It looked expensive. It looked final. My name is Iris Whitaker. I'm 68 years old, a widow. For 40 years, I managed a family estate worth $39 million, brick by brick, account by account. Today I sold it. And tonight, I was here, under chandeliers and soft jazz, celebrating that sale with my only son, Evan, and his wife, Sabrina. The estate was more than land. It was our legacy. It carried the trees my husband planted before cancer took him, the porch swing where I once read bedtime stories, to a boy who used to think the world of me. That boy was Evan. But tonight, the man sitting across from me looked distracted. He smiled, but his eyes drifted to Sabrina first, always to her. She clinked her glass against mine earlier, laughing softly. "To new beginnings, Iris. To family." Her diamond bracelet caught the light. My bracelet, technically, passed down through my mother's will. I'd given it to her on their wedding day, believing she'd wear it with gratitude, not calculation. Now the waiter's whisper echoed in my head. "She slipped something into your drink." I took a slow breath. I'd spent my life teaching literature. I knew the power of silence. The most dangerous chapter never announces itself. It just begins. So I smiled. And while the band started another song and my son guided his wife to the dance floor, I reached for my glass. Then, carefully, I switched it with my water. My hands didn't tremble. My voice didn't shake. Years of motherhood had trained me to pour calm over chaos. From my purse, I pulled a small pill bottle, half filled with heart medication, and quietly poured the wine into it, one steady tilt at a time. Then I capped it, slid it into my handbag. The rest of the wine, I tipped into the nearest planter behind my chair, letting red stain dark soil. I set the glass back exactly where it had been, untouched, unremarkable. The waiter stood near the corner, watching with worry in his eyes. When our gazes met, I gave him a small nod, a thank you sealed in silence. He nodded back, his lips pressed thin, as if afraid to say more. Across the room, Evan spun Sabrina beneath the chandelier, their laughter rising above the saxophone. From a distance, they looked perfect. If you didn't know better, you'd think they adored me. If you didn't know better, you'd believe we were a family. I looked down at my hands. Rings removed years ago. Veins soft with age, but still strong. Strong enough to raise a son. Strong enough to let go of an estate worth millions. Strong enough now to gather evidence before it was too late. The truth is, trust doesn't vanish all at once. It cracks quietly, like a glass too thin for the weight it carries. I reached for my napkin, dabbed my lips, and smiled when Evan returned. "Everything all right, Mom?" he asked, slipping back into his seat, a hint of impatience hiding behind concern. "Yes," I said softly. "Everything's fine." My tone was steady, but my mind was sprinting, through questions, through years of overlooked details. Why tonight? Why now, after the sale? Was this what new beginnings meant for them? An ending for me? I folded the napkin neatly, placed it beside the plate, and stood. "Where are you going?" Evan asked. "Just some air," I replied. "Too warm under these lights. He nodded, distracted, already glancing toward the dance floor where Sabrina was waving him back. I watched him walk away, my son, my heartbeat, unaware he was following someone else's rhythm. As soon as he disappeared, I turned to the waiter. "Can you confirm what you saw?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I'll sign if you need it." "Thank you," I whispered. "Keep this between us for now." He hesitated. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I will be," I said, "once I have proof." Proof. That was all I ever needed. Not drama, not vengeance, just the truth on paper. I left a generous tip folded beneath my glass, then slipped through the velvet curtains toward the lobby, each step light, deliberate. The air outside was cooler, cleaner. City lights reflected off the marble steps, but none shimmered as bright as the clarity in my mind. I had spent decades building wealth, trust, and a name worth more than numbers. And if someone had decided to cash that in tonight, they'd learn one thing. I don't break quietly. I plan quietly. In 20 minutes, I'd have the glass sealed, time-stamped, and ready for the lab. In 20 minutes, I'd call Rachel Stone, my old friend, a retired attorney who never lost a case built on evidence. And in 20 minutes, every door they thought I'd leave open would be locked. So I walked into the night, heels clicking like punctuation marks at the end of a chapter. A chapter they didn't realize I'd already begun rewriting. The night air pressed gently against my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk, the city's hum folding into a steady rhythm behind me. I didn't rush. I couldn't. When life tilts, speed is a thief. It steals the space you need to think. A cab waited under a street lamp, its light flickering like a hesitant heartbeat. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver the address of the nearest 24-hour courier lab. My voice was calm. My pulse was not. I wrapped my hand around my purse, feeling the small bottle inside. Its weight, heavier than its size. The driver glanced at me through the mirror. "You all right, ma'am?" "Yes," I said. "Just need something delivered safely." He nodded, said nothing more, and the city rolled by in streaks of gold and glass. I stared at my reflection in the window. The woman looking back seemed older, yes, but not fragile. She was thinking, quietly, precisely, of what must come next. When we stopped, I paid in cash, thanked the driver, and stepped out. The lab's sign buzzed faintly overhead. Inside, fluorescent light washed every shadow away. I filled out the form, wrote the timestamp, and handed the sealed bottle to the receptionist. She looked up. "Do you need expedited testing?" "Yes, chain of custody, signature required." Her pen scratched across the label. "You'll have preliminary results within 24 hours. "That's all I need." As she took the bottle, I felt something ease in my chest. Action, not panic, steadies the heart. Outside, I called Rachel. She answered on the second ring. "Iris, it's late." "I know. I need your help." "What happened?" "Not over the phone, but I have evidence. Lab's handling it now." Rachel paused, her voice shifting from warmth to steel. "All right. My office opens early. 7 sharp. I'll be there." No drama, Iris. Just facts. Always. When we hung up, I slipped the phone into my coat pocket and took a slow breath. Streetlights painted the pavement in pale gold. Somewhere, music from the restaurant still drifted through the night. Saxophone notes trailing like smoke. I thought of Evan, his distracted smile, his hand resting lightly on Sabrina's back. I thought of the toast she'd made, her eyes glinting as she said new beginnings. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she didn't care. Either way, I couldn't afford to guess. My plan had to be made of proof, not hope. I walked 3 blocks to a small hotel I'd once used during renovations years ago. The clerk barely looked up as I signed the ledger. Name? Whitman, I said. I need one night. Quiet room. He handed me the key. Welcome, Ms. Whitman. In the elevator, the mirrors caught every angle of me. Silver hair pinned neatly, evening dress still smooth, eyes steady. You can survive betrayal in pearls if you remember what truly matters. Inside the room, I turned on one lamp and set my purse on the table. My notebook waited inside, tucked between folded receipts and a photograph of my husband from our first summer on the estate. His smile, forever gentle, reminded me, reason before reaction. I opened the notebook, dated the page, and wrote a single line. Restaurant, 8:40 p.m., substance added to drink. Witness confirmed. Below it, I listed steps like a teacher grading her own test. Evidence sealed and delivered. Rachel notified. Next, secure assets. I flipped to a clean page and drew a small square in the corner. An old habit. Inside it, I sketched a single line branching into two. Reaction on one side, plan on the other. My pen hovered, then circled plan. Because panic was a luxury I no longer allowed myself. I checked the locks, drew the curtains, and sat by the window. Down below, headlights slid along wet pavement, tiny constellations in motion. For a moment, I let the silence settle. It didn't comfort me, but it focused me. A text lit up my phone. Evan. Mom, where did you go? You okay? I typed slowly. I'm fine. Rest. We'll talk soon. I didn't add more. Every word would be measured from now on. Another message followed, shorter, sharper. Come home tonight. Alone. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I turned off the phone. Messages can wait. Evidence cannot. I gathered my documents, the sale contract, the estate files, every signature that carried my name. They would need to be reviewed, line by line, before dawn. If a trap had been laid tonight, it likely didn't end in a glass. The clock on the nightstand glowed past midnight. Somewhere in the city, laughter echoed from open windows. But in this quiet room, I felt the strange calm that follows certainty. They thought I'd react like a wounded woman. Instead, I was building a case. I folded my dress across the chair, replaced it with a simple sweater from my bag, and slipped my wedding band into the drawer. Grief had taught me how to live without what I loved. Now it would teach me how to protect what remained. Before turning out the light, I whispered to the darkness, "Not tonight. Not ever again." Then I closed my eyes and let the plan settle into place like ink drying on paper. Dawn arrived without apology, brushing pale light across the hotel curtains. I woke before the alarm, my mind already sifting through the steps ahead. Sleep had been shallow but steady. Plans are better pillows than regret. After dressing, I gathered the documents I'd packed the night before. The estate sale contract, banking summaries, and a copy of the old trust. They looked harmless, just papers in a folder, but every page was a doorway someone might try to walk through. By 7, I stood outside Rachel's office, the city still soft with morning mist. She opened the door herself, hair pinned back, glasses already perched on her nose. Years in the courtroom had carved certainty into her posture. "You look calm," she said. "I am," I replied. Calm doesn't mean safe. Inside, she cleared a space on her desk. "Start from the beginning." I placed the lab receipt down first, then the note I'd written in the hotel room. Substance added to my drink. Witness saw it. Sample delivered and sealed. Her brow lifted slightly. Timestamp? 8:40 p.m. Chain of custody confirmed. Rachel scanned the receipt, nodding. Good. That's your foundation. Now, what do we need to shore up before they start moving pieces? Everything with my name on it, I said. Especially anything that transfers after death. She reached for her keyboard, her fingers striking the keys with practiced speed. We'll start with TOD accounts, then check your LLC filings. They'll look for silent exits, automatic transfers, joint authorizations, anything that can shift assets without notice. As the printer hummed, Rachel's paralegal entered with 2 coffees, placed them down, and quietly left. The warmth steadied my hands. Rachel slid the first sheet toward me. Here, transfer on death clause, your brokerage account, designated to Evan. I studied the line, small and ordinary. So if I'd never signed a revocation, it would pass straight to him. Exactly. All he'd need is a death certificate. The words sat heavy in the air. Rachel broke the silence first. We'll cancel this immediately. I'll draft the revocation. You'll sign, and I'll have it couriered before noon. Do it, I said. She nodded, printed another page. Next, the LLC that holds the estate proceeds. You're listed as managing member, but there's a secondary authorization, added 3 months ago. Who added it? Rachel tapped the screen. Evan. My throat tightened, though my voice stayed level. So he could act if I were incapacitated. Yes, and paired with a guardianship claim, that's a clean takeover. I leaned back, the leather chair cool against my shoulders. Then we closed that door too. Rachel smiled faintly. Already ahead of you. She typed a revocation of power of attorney, each keystroke cutting another thread. Sign here, she said, sliding the document toward me. I uncapped her pen and wrote my name, slow and deliberate, across the line. As the ink dried, Rachel leaned forward. You're not overreacting, Iris. This is preventive maintenance. Think of it as installing fire breaks before the sparks spread. Then let's build the whole line, I said. For the next hour, we combed through files, checking signatures, updating beneficiaries, removing old authorizations. The paralegal scanned each revision, affixed timestamps, and placed them into a growing folder labeled Whitaker Asset Protection. When we finished, Rachel sat back and folded her hands. All critical accounts are now under your sole authority. POA revoked, TODs canceled, LLC updated. If anyone tries to move funds or sign in your name, the system will flag it. I exhaled slowly. So tonight's drink wasn't just about harm. It was about timing. Rachel nodded. If you'd been admitted for confusion or collapse, guardianship could have followed. They'd paint it as concern, not control. I closed the folder and pressed my palm on its cover. Then they underestimated the teacher in me. I've spent my life grading intentions. Rachel smiled. You've also spent it writing essays with evidence. Her phone buzzed, an incoming email from the lab. She opened it, scanned the text, and looked up. Preliminary confirmation. Traces consistent with Z-class sedatives mixed with alcohol. They'll send full documentation later today. That's enough to prove intent, I said. Enough to open an investigation, she corrected gently. But remember, we're not starting a war. We're fortifying the peace. I reached for my cup, the coffee now cool but strong. Peace is easier to keep when the locks hold. Rachel packed the folder into a protective sleeve. Take this copy. I'll archive the rest. And Iris, keep your movements quiet. Desperation listens for footsteps. I nodded, slipping the folder into my bag. Quiet's never been my enemy. As I left her office, the city had brightened, glass towers catching sunlight like new intentions. Cars streamed past, unaware of the quiet battle unfolding behind polished doors. On the corner, I paused before crossing. The traffic light blinked red, then green, order guiding chaos, just as Rachel had guided me. I thought of the waiter, the whisper, the glass glinting under chandeliers. Every detail now catalogued, every move measured. They had tried to write me out of my own story. Instead, I was editing the plot, one document at a time. By the time I reached the hotel, I had a plan mapped clean across my mind. Secure, verify, prepare. The foundation of truth was built on paper, and today, paper was my armor. By the time the sun climbed above the skyline, I'd already brewed a cup of tea and lined my notes across the small hotel desk. The city moved quietly below, unaware of the lines being redrawn in one woman's ledger. Calm, steady, deliberate. Those were my tools now. At 9 o'clock sharp, my phone rang. The number belonged to the lab. I let it ring twice before answering, giving myself a breath to center. "This is Iris." A measured voice came through. "Mrs. Whitaker, this is Dr. Nguyen from Metro Diagnostics. We've completed preliminary testing on your submitted sample." "Go ahead," I said. "We detected Z-class sedatives, prescription level, mixed with alcohol. It's a potent combination, especially concerning for someone taking cardiac medication." "How potent?" He paused. "It could cause blackouts, confusion, or loss of control. In severe cases, collapse. We'll send the signed report and toxicology details within the hour." I closed my eyes, steadying the hand that held the phone. "Thank you, doctor. Please keep chain of custody intact." "Already logged and time-stamped," he said. "You'll receive the full document via encrypted link." When the call ended, I stared at the window for a long moment. The reflection that looked back wasn't frightened. It was focused. Proof had a way of cooling the blood. I took a pen and wrote on my notepad, Z-class sedatives, plus wine, intentional incapacitation. Beneath it, another line, not accident, not carelessness, intent. A soft chime signaled a new email. The subject line read, "Metro Diagnostics, preliminary findings." Attached was the PDF, signed and sealed. I opened it slowly, letting my eyes trace every word, every timestamp. Each line felt like a small weight settling into place. Evidence, not emotion. I forwarded the file to Rachel with a brief note. Confirmed. Z-class, mixed with wine, report attached. Her reply came within minutes. "Got it. Printing hard copy for records. Proceed with next steps. Asset audit. Safe access only." I nodded to no one. The rhythm of accountability had begun. The next call was to my pharmacist. "Good morning. This is Iris Whitaker. I need clarification about interactions between Z-class sedatives and metoprolol." The pharmacist's tone sharpened. "They should never be combined with alcohol or cardiac medications. It can cause disorientation or fainting, especially in older adults." "Thank you," I said. "That's all I needed." After hanging up, I gathered every bottle from my travel bag. Prescriptions, supplements, even aspirin. I checked labels twice, lined them up on the counter, and discarded anything that wasn't sealed by the pharmacy. Betrayal teaches you caution in places you once trusted. By mid-morning, the room had transformed into a small command center, folders stacked, laptop open, clock ticking softly. I drafted a memo summarizing the morning's findings: time, substance, witness, intent. Then, with quiet precision, I printed 2 copies and slipped them into separate envelopes. One for Rachel's archive, one for my own. When I finished, I opened the hotel window. The air carried a chill, the kind that clears the fog behind your eyes. I thought of the restaurant's chandeliers, of the way Sabrina's bracelet had glinted beneath the light, of the toast she'd made with her easy smile. To new beginnings. Now I understood what beginning she'd hoped for. A knock startled me. I looked through the peephole and saw the bellman holding a small parcel. "Delivery for Ms. Whitman," he said when I opened the door. "Thank you." I tipped him and set the box on the desk. Inside, neatly wrapped, was the lab's hard copy. Chain of custody stickers unbroken, every seal intact. I signed the receipt, tucked it beside my notes, and exhaled. Another step secured. I poured a glass of water, clear and still. Beside it, the empty wine bottle I'd photographed before sealing the sample. 2 drinks, 2 paths, the one offered and the one I chose. The phone buzzed again. Rachel's voice came firm, steady. "Iris, I've reviewed the report. This isn't negligence. It's an act. With your permission, I'll prepare a preliminary affidavit linking the lab findings to your witness statement. We'll keep it sealed until needed." "Do it," I said. "And Iris, stay where you are for now. We need to finalize all locks and authorizations before you set foot back in that house." "I'm not going home. Yet," I replied. "Not until every open door is closed." After the call, I sorted the rest of my papers. Insurance policies, property lists, trusts. Every signature bore a story, every clause a lesson. I underlined one line in bold ink. Ownership means responsibility. Then softly, I added a note beneath. Trust must be earned twice, once with love, once with proof. Hours later, as sunlight angled across the floor, I felt the first true stillness since last night. The fear had drained, leaving purpose behind. Proof didn't heal betrayal, but it built a bridge toward justice. I gathered my purse, slid the evidence folder inside, and checked the time. Rachel's office awaited, and with it, the next layer of protection. Before leaving, I turned off the lamp, glanced once more at the desk, a tidy record of truth, and whispered to the empty room, "This isn't panic, this is preparation." Then I stepped into the hallway, the door closing softly behind me, and walked toward the elevator with the calm of someone who knew the next move. The lobby smelled faintly of citrus and polish, that quiet perfume of places built for passing through. I approached the front desk, the clerk looking up with the detached courtesy of someone who's seen every kind of traveler. "One night under Whitman," I said. "Extend to 3. No calls, no messages." He typed, nodded, and slid a key across the counter. "Room 412. Would you like a wake-up service?" "No, thank you. Just silence." Upstairs, the hallway stretched long and hushed, carpet swallowing each footstep. When the door closed behind me, the room felt suspended in time. Sterile, safe, anonymous, perfect. I placed my bag on the bed, unzipped it, and began to arrange my life into small, organized piles. Evidence here, contracts there, receipts, IDs, spare keys. The structure calmed me. It always had. On the nightstand, I lined up 3 essentials: my phone, my wallet, and the envelope holding the lab report. Proof, identity, plan, each within reach. I turned my phone on. Within seconds, it vibrated. 7 missed calls from Evan, 2 from Sabrina, and 1 voicemail. I didn't listen. The subject line of betrayal rarely changes. Instead, I composed a short text to Rachel. "Hotel secure, staying under alias. We'll forward details later. Continue asset locks." Her reply arrived a moment later. "Understood. I'll confirm with banker before noon. Don't respond to them directly. Don't respond." The phrase echoed through the room, an invisible wall between impulse and intention. I scrolled through the messages from Evan, reading only the first words of each. Mom, please, just come home. We can explain. Each plea sat heavy in its half-truth. The Evan I raised was kind, curious, quick to apologize. The man texting now sounded cornered, rehearsed. The phone buzzed again. Another message, short, chilling. Come home tonight. Alone. For a moment, the room dimmed around the edges. Then, clarity returned, sharp as glass. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Rachel, and powered the phone down. In betrayal, patterns reveal themselves. Urgency, isolation, control. Tonight's demand was the final proof of intent. I sat at the small table and opened my notebook. Across a blank page, I wrote 3 lines. Stay out. Stay quiet. Stay safe. Then, beneath them, one more. Plan. Protection, not revenge. The teapot whistled softly as I filled a cup, steam curling like a fragile promise. I sipped slowly, letting warmth anchor me. Outside, clouds gathered over the city, the light fading into a muted gray. I reviewed my timeline. The sample delivered, the report confirmed, the legal firebreak signed. Each task completed without confrontation, without noise. They wouldn't see the pattern until the net closed around their intentions. By early afternoon, a courier arrived with a sealed folder. Rachel's signature scrawled across the flap. Inside, revocations, updated filings, and a note written in her tidy hand. Keep originals with you. Store copies off-site. I folded the note, smiled faintly, and tucked it into my notebook. Old friends like Rachel didn't need to say, "I believe you." Their actions said it louder. When dusk settled, I ordered dinner from room service, a simple salad, no wine. The waiter knocked once, placed the tray on the table, and left without a word. The quiet suited me. Silence had become the safest company. I ate slowly, each bite measured, my mind mapping the next step. Tomorrow, we'd verify the bank locks, finalize the trust, and confirm surveillance installation at the house. A sudden image crossed my mind. The old kitchen window back home, the view of the maple tree, the porch light flickering at dusk. It had been my husband's ritual to switch it on first thing every evening, a signal of safety. Now, the house no longer signaled home, it signaled risk. When the meal was done, I packed my purse with essentials, ID, cash, the signed lab report, and Rachel's documents. I placed them beside the bed, within arm's reach. Before turning in, I called the locksmith service Rachel had recommended. A calm voice answered. I need a full rekey, external cameras, and deadbolt verification. Tomorrow morning. Address? I hesitated, then gave it. Access only with identification. No subcontractors. Understood. Confirmation text in the morning. When I hung up, I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the window's faint reflection. Behind me, a woman who'd built an empire of trust now stood guard over its remains. A notification blinked on the phone. Rachel again. Check mail forwarding. Sabrina may attempt service redirection. I opened my laptop, logged into the postal system, and confirmed every detail. Nothing altered yet. Still, I set alerts for changes. In times like these, vigilance was both shield and sword. Outside, a siren wailed far off, its echo fading into the hum of the city. I drew the curtains, switched off the lamp, and lay back. The pillow was firm, the sheets cool. Sleep might not come easily, but rest wasn't optional. I needed a clear mind for what tomorrow demanded. In the stillness, my thoughts drifted to Evan, not the man at the restaurant, but the boy who once chased fireflies in our garden, barefoot and laughing, shouting for me to watch. I had watched then. I was watching now. Only this time, the chase was different. And I wasn't the one in the dark. I whispered into the quiet, "You'll find me where the truth is." Then I closed my eyes, letting the city's distant rhythm lull me toward a fragile peace, one built not on comfort, but on control. Morning light spilled across the hotel curtains, soft but insistent, as if urging me to move before the world did. I rose early, showered, dressed in quiet colors, slate, ivory, steadiness. My reflection in the mirror looked older, yes, but grounded. A woman who no longer confused silence with surrender. The phone buzzed at exactly 8. Rachel's name lit the screen. "Iris," she began, voice composed but firm. "I just received an alert from the court registry. They filed a petition for temporary guardianship late last night. Emergency basis. Their counsel claimed you're mentally fatigued from the estate sale and at risk of diminished capacity." I took a slow breath, steadying my hands. They moved fast. "Desperation always does," she replied. "The hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. without notice, until I called in a favor. We're in. Judge Reynolds, neutral, cautious, but he respects process." Guardianship. The word itself felt like a cage. I'd seen it happen before. Elderly clients stripped of autonomy under the guise of care. But not today. Not to me. "Send me the affidavit," I said. "We'll respond before the docket opens." "Already drafting. Meet me at the Courthouse Cafe in 30. And Iris, bring the lab report. It's time to weave the threads together." When the call ended, I opened the encrypted file she'd sent overnight. Petition for temporary guardianship, filed by Evan and Sabrina Whitaker. Reading their words felt like walking through a house I once owned. Every wall rearranged. Respondent exhibits erratic paranoia, recently liquidated estate, potential for undue influence. Undue influence. They'd tried to erase my clarity and turn it into weakness. I zipped the lab folder into my handbag, along with the notarized witness statement from Luis and Rachel's draft filings. Before leaving, I straightened the bed, smoothing every crease, order before battle. The Courthouse Cafe sat beneath tall windows, sunlight striking polished marble. Rachel was already there, navy blazer crisp, glasses perched low. Beside her sat a thin folder stamped Firebreak Number 1. "You look composed," she said as I approached. "I slept with intention," I answered. She smiled faintly. "Good. We'll need that." We reviewed the affidavit together. Paragraph by paragraph, Rachel dismantled their claims. Medical clearance from my cardiologist. Financial logs showing controlled disbursement, not erratic behavior. And at the center, Exhibit C, the lab report. Rachel tapped it lightly. "This alone reframes the narrative. You weren't confused. You were targeted. And you acted with composure to preserve evidence." I nodded. "Proof isn't revenge. It's rescue." "Exactly." She slipped the affidavit into a binder. "Judge Reynolds values order. Keep responses brief. No emotion, just facts." At 10 sharp, we entered the courtroom, a modest chamber lined with oak panels and the faint scent of paper and polish. Evan and Sabrina sat at the petitioner's table, their attorney whispering hurriedly. Evan's eyes flicked toward me, guilt shadowed by fear. Sabrina's posture stayed upright, polished, a smile too calm for innocence. When the clerk called the case, Rachel rose. "Your Honor, respondent contests the petition in full." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Proceed." Rachel stepped forward. "Petitioners claim mental fatigue and impaired judgment. We submit evidence proving clarity of mind and deliberate action. She passed the lab report to the bailiff. Exhibit C. Toxicology findings confirming a sedative introduced to Mrs. Whitaker's drink by an external party. Witnessed, time-stamped, and verified. A ripple of tension swept through the room. Sabrina's smile faltered. Judge Reynolds scanned the document, brow tightening. Z-class sedatives. Yes, Your Honor. Mixed with alcohol. The respondent recognized abnormal conduct, preserved the evidence, and secured professional analysis, all before petitioner's filing. Rachel paused, letting the silence settle. These are not the actions of an impaired woman. They are the actions of a cautious one. The judge looked up. Petitioners, do you wish to respond? Their attorney cleared his throat. My clients were unaware. Then they filed under false pretenses. The judge interrupted. Emergency guardianship is not a tool for control. It's a remedy for incapacity. I see none here. His gavel struck once, clean and final. Petition dismissed. Record sealed. Costs to petitioners. The sound echoed like a door closing, firm, irrevocable. Rachel inclined her head. Thank you, Your Honor. As we left the chamber, I caught Evan's eye. For a heartbeat, I saw the boy beneath the man, the one who used to ask, Are you proud of me, Mom? I wanted to answer. But this wasn't the moment for nostalgia. Truth first, healing later. Outside, sunlight spilled across the courthouse steps. Rachel handed me a duplicate folder. Firebreak Summer 1 executed. The dismissal blocks any future petitions without medical basis. Next, we'll lock financial proxies. Power of attorney, transfer on death, all revoked. I opened the folder. Inside were clean pages, notarized seals, fresh signatures, barriers rising where trust had fallen. You've built estates before, Rachel said quietly. Now you're fortifying one, yourself. We walked toward the cafe again, footsteps in sync. What happens when they realize every door is closing? I asked. They'll knock louder, she said. But sound doesn't move stone. At the table, she unfolded the next blueprint. Firebreak number 2, a trust amendment transferring key assets into a protective foundation. We'll file this by end of day. Once executed, neither can act without oversight. I traced the edges of the document, feeling its weight. Not just ink, but boundary. Rachel, I said softly, I used to believe safety lived in people. Now I see it lives in paper. She met my eyes. And paper remembers. We signed, one page at a time, deliberate strokes sealing each clause. When we finished, I looked out the window. The courthouse flag rippled in the breeze, calm, persistent, unyielding. They tried to claim my mind, I murmured, but all they've done is prove it's sharper than theirs. Rachel smiled. On to the next safeguard. And as the document slid into her briefcase, I felt the first quiet ripple of relief, like water clearing after a storm. By the time we reached the bank, the morning rush had thinned. Sunlight filtered through tall glass panels, streaking across marble floors in clean, silent lines. The scent of polished wood and paper hung in the air, familiar, grounding. I'd spent years walking into buildings like this, signing documents that built a legacy. Today, I was here to reshape it. Rachel held the door open for me, her portfolio tucked beneath one arm. We'll meet with Mr. Hanley, she said quietly. Senior trust officer, 40 years in fiduciary management. He's seen every family crisis imaginable. I nodded. Then he won't flinch at mine. We approached the counter, and within minutes, a gentleman in a gray suit appeared. Silver hair neatly parted, eyes patient behind rimmed glasses. Mrs. Whitaker, he greeted with a courteous bow of his head. I've reviewed your preliminary file. You've come to decant your trust. Yes, I answered. I'm not dissolving what I built. I'm redirecting it. He gestured toward a private office, quiet, sunlit, a single potted fern beside a framed photograph of a tree-lined estate. A coincidence, perhaps, or fate's gentle reminder of roots and choices. Once seated, Rachel unfolded the documents across the desk, clean parchment, embossed seals. We're moving the principal assets, cash, securities, residual proceeds from the estate sale, into a new structure, the Evergreen Foundation. Mr. Hanley adjusted his glasses. Charitable intent? Yes, I said, but also moral intent. I want the next chapter of this wealth to stand for protection, not possession. Scholarships for women over 50 returning to school, grants for senior literacy programs, and a food initiative, shade tables, where elders can share a meal with dignity. He smiled softly. That's not just a trust, Mrs. Whitaker. That's a legacy. Rachel added, it also functions as a safeguard. The foundation will serve as both beneficiary and shield. Disbursements governed by independent trustees. No individual control, no undue influence. I glanced at the papers, tracing the ink with my fingertip. Every line felt like stitching a torn seam, mending what greed had tried to unravel. Mr. Hanley leaned back. I've worked in this field since before your son was born. I see mothers like you more often than you think, women who gave everything, only to realize generosity without boundaries becomes an invitation. His words hung in the room, not judgment, but truth. I don't want a statue, I said quietly. I want shade. He looked up. Shade? A statue is cold. It demands admiration and silence, but shade offers rest, comfort, a place to breathe. Rachel smiled faintly. That's your mission statement. Mr. Hanley nodded approvingly. Then let's build it properly. He guided us through each clause, governance terms, charitable purpose, conditions for amendment. His pen glided across the page with practiced ease, marking where my initials would go. As I signed, I remembered planting the first oak behind our old porch with my husband. We'd chosen the spot carefully, where morning light could filter through young leaves. It'll outlive us, he'd said, pressing soil over roots. He was right. Some things are meant to stand, others to shelter. When the final signature dried, Mr. Hanley closed the folder. Effective immediately, the Evergreen Foundation will assume fiduciary control. You retain advisory rights, but distributions follow mission compliance. No family member may override without unanimous trustee consent. Rachel added, it means your wealth can't be weaponized again. I breathed deeply, not from exhaustion, but relief. Outside his office, the bank corridor stretched long and quiet. Every footstep felt like reclaiming ground I'd once ceded too easily. Rachel walked beside me. You realize what you've done, don't you? Redirected what they tried to steal, I said. Turned it into something they can't misuse. We paused near the exit, where sunlight poured across the marble tiles. Rachel tilted her head. Do you regret not confronting them, demanding an apology? No, I replied. I'm not interested in confessions. I'm interested in consequences and transformation. She studied me for a moment, then smiled. That's why this will hold. It's built on clarity, not anger. I thought of Evan, his laugh when he was small, the way his hand once fit in mine. I didn't raise him to betray, but life doesn't always grow straight, even with careful tending. Sometimes roots meet rock, and you must decide whether to twist or rise. I still hope, I said quietly. that he'll learn what to build next. And if he doesn't, then the shade will still be here for someone else. Back at the front desk, Mr. Hanley handed me a small leather-bound copy of the Foundation Charter. "For your records," he said. "And Mrs. Whitaker, thank you. The world needs more shade." I smiled, slipping it into my bag beside the sealed lab report and witness statement. Every document different, yet bound by one thread: truth. Outside, the day had turned brighter. Trees along the avenue cast long shadows over parked cars and benches. Children laughed somewhere down the block, the sound mingling with city hum. I stopped for a moment beneath one of those trees, letting the light flicker through its leaves. The air smelled faintly of rain, renewal waiting in the distance. For the first time in days, my shoulders eased. My mind, once tangled in fear, felt clear. I wasn't building a monument to loss. I was building a shelter for hope. And as I stepped forward, foundation papers secure in my bag, I whispered to myself, a promise, not a prayer. No more statues, only shade. By late afternoon, the sky had softened to a quiet gold. The city's noise dulled as I stepped into the law office. Glass doors, polished floors, the scent of paper and lemon oil. This was the final piece before the storm I knew was coming, a will that could speak when I no longer wished to. The receptionist smiled politely. "Mrs. Whitaker, Miss Stone is waiting in conference room 2. Inside, Rachel had already arranged the paperwork. 2 witnesses sat at the far end of the table, an assistant from the firm and a notary public, both neutral, both steady. No family, no emotion, just structure. Rachel gestured to the document in front of me. "This is the revised last will and testament of Iris Whitaker," she said. "We've removed all transfer on death clauses and inserted a clear governance hierarchy. You'll also sign the letter of wishes today. It isn't legally binding, but it gives moral direction. Your voice, even when you're gone." I took my seat. Let's make sure it's a voice they can't twist. She handed me a pen. I signed where the seals glimmered, initials neat beside each page. My name looked firm in ink, unshaken, unbroken. When the witnesses finished, Rachel passed me a cream-colored envelope, unsealed. "This is your letter of wishes. You can write in your own hand. Guidance, not guilt." I paused, then wrote slowly. "To those who inherit my name, build trust like shelter, not weapon. Wealth is not love, it's responsibility. Remember, legacy is measured by kindness, not currency." When I folded it, I caught Rachel watching me. "That sounds like you," she said softly. "It should," I replied. "It's the last page of a long story." She slid both documents into a leather folder, pressed them flat. "Now we'll validate signatures at the bank. Mr. Hanley will arrange the medallion guarantee." We left the building together, autumn light spilling down the steps. The air felt sharper than before, edges of wind cutting through warmth. At the bank, Mr. Hanley greeted us with the calm efficiency of a man who measured time in transactions. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "I have the signature verification ready. Once this stamp is applied, no one can contest authenticity without cause." I nodded. That's exactly what I need. He affixed the medallion seal, a metallic imprint over my signature, shimmering under the overhead light. It looked like armor. As we exited through the revolving doors, I caught something at the edge of my vision. A silhouette near the sidewalk, half turned away. Sunglasses, scarf, coat pulled tight. At first, I thought nothing of it, just another passerby waiting for a cab. But then the figure lifted a phone, angled toward us. My steps slowed. The wind shifted, and the scarf slipped just enough to reveal auburn hair. Sabrina. She lowered the phone as our eyes met through the glass. Then quickly she turned and walked down the block. Rachel followed my gaze. Do you know her? Yes, I said quietly. Too well. We stepped outside, the door's reflection framing her retreat. Rachel's voice was calm. It's not illegal to follow someone, but it's telling. She's watching, I murmured, documenting, maybe waiting for me to slip. Rachel pulled out her phone, snapped a discreet photo of the street. If she contacts or intimidates you again, this becomes part of the record, proof of intent. Sabrina vanished into the crowd, her heels clicking like small knives against concrete. I exhaled slowly. She's not subtle. She's nervous, Rachel replied. People who think they're losing control always are. We reached the car. Before unlocking the door, Rachel turned to me. From now on, travel with documentation. Keep copies of the trust, the foundation charter, and the lab report. Carry them as shield, not sword. I've spent my life teaching literature, I said. But lately, every chapter feels like a courtroom. She smiled faintly. That's because you're rewriting the ending. The ride back was quiet. I watched the city roll by. Families on sidewalks, hands intertwined, laughter spilling out of cafes. They all looked ordinary, untouched by betrayal. Yet every window reflected a truth I'd learned the hard way. Trust can fade in silence, like ink left in sun. When we stopped at a red light, Rachel glanced at me. Do you ever wish you hadn't built so much? No, I said. I just wish I'd built it with boundaries sooner. We reached my temporary residence, a modest apartment overlooking the river. Security cameras watched the entrance, my new peacekeepers. Inside, I placed the folder on the table beside a single glass of water. Clear, untouched, always in sight. Through the window, the sky had shifted to violet, streaked with faint clouds. I thought of Sabrina's reflection, how guilt often hides behind defiance, how fear pretends to be pride. There was a time I might have chased her down, demanded answers. Not anymore. Some confrontations aren't meant to happen in public. Some truths only stand when spoken on paper, witnessed, sealed. Rachel texted when she reached home. Got the verification copies. Sleep easy tonight. You're fortified. I typed back, shade, not statue. She replied with a single checkmark emoji. It made me smile. Even in law, symbols mattered. Before bed, I reviewed my small collection of evidence. Lab vial, time-stamped photo, signed witness statement. Each piece quiet, unassuming, yet powerful in harmony. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere distant, then faded. The world moved on, unaware that within these papers lay the map of a reckoning. I switched off the lamp, leaving only the river's shimmer to paint soft light across the floor. Tomorrow, more steps would follow. Cross-references, certified copies, additional locks. But tonight, I rested in stillness, knowing the foundation was set, the will was sealed, and the follower had revealed herself. She could watch all she wanted, because I was watching too. Morning arrived dressed in rain. Thin lines slid down the window like threads of memory, each drop marking time I refused to waste. Today wasn't about emotion. It was about proof. Quiet, verifiable, irrefutable proof. I placed 3 envelopes on the table, one labeled lab, one witness, one video. A triangle of truth, waiting to be sealed. At 9 sharp, I stepped into the law office again. Rachel was already there, sleeves rolled, glasses perched low, the look of a woman who'd turned empathy into precision. "Morning," she said, pushing a cup of coffee my way. Everything in order? Yes, I replied, setting my handbag down. All 3 corners of the case are ready. She smiled faintly. Let's close the triangle. We began with the first piece. The lab folder lay open, pages crisp, signatures clean. A notarized report confirmed every trace. Z-class sedative. Active compound consistent with zolpidem. Combined with wine and my medication, it could have erased my memory. Or worse. Rachel read each line carefully, highlighting key sections. Chain of custody intact. Seal time-stamped. Technician and pharmacist signatures verified. Science speaks softly, I said, but it doesn't lie. She nodded. The foundation of any good defense or offense. Next came the witness. Luis arrived 5 minutes later, raincoat damp, eyes steady despite his youth. He greeted us politely, then sat at the long mahogany table, hands folded. Rachel began gently. Luis, you understand this statement is voluntary? Yes, ma'am. You witnessed Mrs. Whitaker's daughter-in-law place an unknown substance into her drink? He glanced at me, then back to Rachel. Yes. I saw her tilt a small vial. I thought it was perfume at first. Then she stirred it in. Rachel slid the statement toward him. Read carefully before signing. Luis's eyes moved across the page, lips barely parting as he whispered each word. Then he picked up the pen and signed. The sound of ink on paper felt louder than thunder. I reached across, touching his hand briefly. Thank you, I said. You didn't have to come. He shook his head. My grandmother raised me. She always said silence helps the wrong side. His words landed deeper than he knew. Rachel placed the signed statement beside the lab file. Second corner, complete. The third piece arrived by messenger, a sealed USB in a padded envelope. Rachel inspected it, checked the chain of custody tag, then opened it carefully. On her laptop, grainy footage flickered to life. The restaurant's chandeliers glowed faintly in black and white. We watched Sabrina glance around, lean toward my glass, and pour from a small vial. Her movements were delicate, rehearsed. Rachel froze the frame. There, timestamped at 7:42 p.m. Same minute, the waiter noted. I exhaled slowly. Even knowing what I'd see didn't soften the sight. Betrayal looks quiet on camera, but it roars in memory. Do we have footage of you switching glasses? She asked. I nodded. Frame at 7:46. I moved the wine to my bottle. She advanced the video. There I was, calm, deliberate, unaware I was being recorded by the same security system that caught her act. Fate has a strange sense of balance. Rachel leaned back. This is airtight, Iris. Intent, method, and witness. Together, they form your shield. I looked at the screen one last time. Proof isn't revenge, I said softly. It's rescue. Luis smiled faintly. You taught me something today, ma'am. No, I replied. You reminded me the world still listens when truth whispers. Rachel saved the video to an encrypted drive, printed the certification page, and logged it into the evidence ledger. She moved with surgical precision, her pen strokes matching my heartbeat. Steady, sure. Once everything was sealed, she gathered the 3 folders, stacking them neatly. Lab, witness, video, she said, tapping each. Together, they protect you from every false claim. Mental decline, fabrication, deflection. They stand like pillars. Triangles don't fall easily, I murmured. Exactly. Outside, rain softened to mist. Through the window, droplets clung to glass like unfinished thoughts. I thought of the years I'd spent teaching my students about structure. The beginning, the conflict, the resolution. Life, it turns out, follows the same grammar. Rachel handed me copies of each file, bound in plastic sleeves. Keep these separate. One in the safe, one with me, one off-site, just in case. I slipped the folder into my bag beside the foundation charter. Proof and purpose, side by side. Luis stood to leave, hesitated. Will they know I came? Not unless you tell them, Rachel assured. Your statement is sealed under counsel privilege. You're protected. He nodded. Then I'm glad I did the right thing. As he left, I felt something rare. Faith, not in people, but in principle. Rachel closed her notebook. You're ready for the next move. Yes, I said, but I'll move quietly. I've learned storms don't announce themselves. They gather. She smiled. Then let's make sure you hold the umbrella. When I stepped outside, the sky was clearing. Puddles mirrored the clouds, reflecting light that hadn't yet broken through. I paused on the steps, breathing in the scent of wet stone. I wasn't trembling anymore. I wasn't guessing. I had evidence, signed, sealed, time-stamped. Proof that would speak louder than accusation. Proof that turned suspicion into certainty, fear into foundation. Each drop of rain against the pavement echoed a truth I'd carried too long. Sometimes love fails, but justice doesn't. I walked toward the car, bag clutched close, every step measured. The triangle was complete. Night came softly, the kind of quiet that invites memory. I returned to my apartment carrying more than paper. I carried closure waiting to be written. The rain had passed, leaving the windows jeweled with droplets that shimmered like distant stars. Inside, only the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the kitchen clock kept time with my heartbeat. I set my bag on the counter, slipped off my shoes, and turned on the oven light. A small circle of gold bloomed in the dim kitchen, washing the room in warmth. It wasn't for baking. It was for clarity. That gentle glow reminded me of nights when my husband would sneak a pie into the oven at midnight, insisting, sweet things taste better under soft light. He used to say truth worked the same way. Never shouted, always revealed gently. Tonight I needed that light. I placed a linen handkerchief beside the stove, the same one I'd carried since our wedding. Initials embroidered in fading thread. It had dried tears at funerals, wiped dust from nursery shelves, and wrapped keepsakes too fragile for time. Now it was here, waiting for ink. I brewed chamomile tea, poured it into a clear cup, and sat at the table. No files, no seals, no signatures. Just me, a pen, and paper that would hold what law couldn't capture. The heart behind every document. The letter of wishes wasn't meant for courtrooms. It was meant for conscience. I began slowly, shaping each word like a stone laid in a garden path. Evan, you came into this world before dawn, crying so loudly the nurse laughed. I thought then that you'd grow up unafraid to speak truth. I raised you to stand, not to hide behind others. I hope one day you'll remember that silence isn't safety. It's surrender. Wealth is not affection. Inheritance is not identity. These are tools, not trophies. Use them to build, not to bind. I paused, tracing the edge of the page. The steam from my tea curled upward, soft as breath. If you read this when I'm gone, know that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's a boundary wrapped in grace. You are still my son, but you must walk your own road and carry your own weight. Do not mistake what I left you for love. Love is earned, not inherited. The words flowed like confession and blessing intertwined. To Sabrina, should you ever hold this letter, may you understand that manipulation cannot plant roots in soil watered by truth. What you tried to take has become something better, a foundation built for others. There is still room for change, but not control. I set down the pen, letting silence settle like snow. The oven light flickered slightly, a gentle pulse, as if agreeing. Across the table lay the handkerchief. I unfolded it and pressed it flat over the page, smoothing each crease. So many years had passed since my hands trembled from emotion. They were steady now, not from absence of pain, but from acceptance. I folded the letter carefully, sliding it into a cream envelope. On the front, I wrote in neat, deliberate strokes, "To be read only when ready." Because truth, like healing, can't be forced. Rising from the table, I walked to the small cabinet near the window. Inside rested the foundation charter, the trust documents, the lab report, pillars of logic. The letter joined them quietly, a heartbeat among statutes. Through the window, the river shimmered beneath street lamps, moving slow and certain. It reminded me of how time carries us forward, no matter who tries to dam the current. I returned to the kitchen, cradled the cup in my hands, and whispered a small thought. Not a prayer, not exactly. Just gratitude. For the waiter who spoke. For the lawyer who listened. For the strength that comes from restraint. On the counter sat the empty pill bottle I'd used that night to save the sample. Glass washed clean, label peeled away. I turned it slowly in my palm, its surface catching light like a promise kept. Proof and purpose, both born from the same moment of stillness. I placed it beside the folded letter, a symbol of what silence can preserve. The clock ticked toward midnight. I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, and switched off the overheads, leaving only the oven's glow. In its circle of warmth, the room looked almost like home. Not the house I sold, but the piece I'd rebuilt. Standing there, I felt the weight of years lift slightly. The shadows no longer seemed heavy. They simply existed, reminders that light had something to reveal. I took one last look at the folded letter and whispered, "Some stories end in silence. Some begin there." Then I reached for the switch, and the oven light dimmed to black, closing one chapter, preparing the next. Morning light spilled through gauzy curtains, soft but certain. The city hummed below, alive with the rhythm of ordinary lives, people buying coffee, catching trains, moving on. I envied that ease for a moment, then reminded myself my peace wouldn't come from forgetting, but from finishing. Today, I would invite them back to the scene they thought belonged to them. I brewed coffee, the scent rising steady and warm, then opened my laptop. The cursor blinked over a blank email, a single pulse, waiting. No anger, no flourish, just clarity. Subject: dinner, same table. Evan, Sabrina, I'd like to see you both. Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. Same restaurant, same table. Let's share one final meal together. I'll bring 2 envelopes. You'll choose which one to open. That choice will decide how tomorrow begins. I read it twice, neither softening nor sharpening the tone. It wasn't a threat. It was structure, consequences written in plain English. Before sending, I added a single line at the end, a signature of calm strength. I believe in endings that teach, not punish. Then I pressed send. The message vanished into the quiet, leaving me with the hum of the refrigerator and the soft beat of my heart. There was no satisfaction in it, only resolve. I turned toward the window. Across the street, a row of maple trees swayed, shedding their last amber leaves. They let go easily, not in defeat, but in rhythm with the season. I was learning that too. At noon, I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. "They'll come," she said before I could speak. Yes. You're certain about doing this face to face? It's the only way they'll understand silence can hold more power than shouting. Then we'll prepare accordingly. We met later that afternoon at her office. The conference table was bare except for a slim folder and 2 cream envelopes, each one labeled neatly, A and B. Rachel opened the folder, reviewing the contents again. Envelope A contains the report, the statement, the footage, and the submission letter to the district attorney. Once filed, it triggers an automatic inquiry. And B? Settlement agreement, conditional clauses, verified trustee oversight, mandatory therapy attendance, and the no-contact provision. She looked up. You're giving them a road back. Not everyone would. I'm not trying to bury them, I said softly. Just stop the digging. She smiled faintly. Then let's make sure tomorrow goes exactly as planned. We coordinated every detail. Luis had agreed to work the same shift, quiet, watchful, ready if questioned. Building security would stand by discreetly, not as muscle, but as witnesses. Rachel herself would be nearby, table across the room, her presence more shield than sword. Before I left, she handed me the envelopes. Their weight felt heavier than their size, not paper, but consequence. Keep them sealed until it's time, she said. I intend to. Outside, dusk was settling. The air carried that first trace of winter, crisp, honest. I walked slowly, letting my mind replay each step that had led here. The whisper, the glass, the plan. Every act of calm had carved a path toward this moment. Back in my apartment, I placed the envelopes on the table. The lamplight gleamed across their surfaces, twin reflections of choice, one sharp, one redemptive. I poured a glass of water, clear and still, then sat beside them. The quiet felt ceremonial. For a moment, I thought of Evan as a boy, sitting on the porch, swinging his legs, asking questions that tumbled out faster than I could answer. He used to believe kindness could fix anything. I once did too. Now I believed in responsibility. Sabrina's face surfaced next, smiling across candlelight, voice warm and practiced. I'd mistaken charm for sincerity. It wasn't the first time I'd misread a story, but it would be the last. I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down beside the envelopes, and whispered, "Tomorrow we close the book." My phone buzzed. A reply. From Evan. "We'll be there. 7 sharp, no apology, no question. Just confirmation. Perhaps guilt, perhaps arrogance. Either way, it didn't matter. They were walking into truth's light, not mine, but their own. I forwarded the message to Rachel. Confirmed. She responded with a single line. "Everything documented. I'll see you there." Evening settled like a soft shawl across my shoulders. I tidied the table, stacked the documents, then stood before the mirror. The woman staring back looked older, yes, but not weaker. Her reflection held something steadier, conviction shaped by restraint. I smiled faintly. "You don't need revenge," I murmured. "You need clarity." In the morning, I would wake not with dread, but purpose. The chandeliers would shine again, the waiter would nod, and truth would take its seat beside me. Tomorrow, under soft light and calm music, 2 envelopes would wait on a white tablecloth, and the choice between them would rewrite everything. The chandeliers shimmered again, just as they had the night everything began. Their glow bathed the restaurant in gentle light, turning silverware into sparks and reflections into reminders. I arrived early, as I always did, choosing calm over entrance. The same table waited near the window, set for 3. 2 envelopes rested beside my glass, One marked A, one B. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. "Welcome back, Mrs. Whitaker," he said softly. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker will join you soon." "Yes," I replied, settling into my chair. "This time we'll finish dinner." He nodded, then stepped away. The waiter, Luis, approached next, wiping his hands nervously on his apron. His eyes met mine, steady but cautious. "Ma'am," he whispered, "I'm here. I'll stay close." "Thank you," I said. "And remember, tonight you're not just serving, you're witnessing." He gave a single nod before retreating to his station. I adjusted the envelopes, aligning them like twin choices waiting for conscience. Outside, evening draped the city in soft indigo. Inside, the music hummed, the same gentle jazz, the same rhythm of memory. At 7 sharp, Evan and Sabrina appeared. He wore a charcoal suit, she a silk dress the color of champagne. To strangers, they looked composed, elegant. To me, they looked cornered. "Mom," Evan greeted, forcing a smile. "You look well." "I am," I said. "Sit." They hesitated before sliding into their seats. For a moment, none of us spoke. The air held its breath. Finally, Sabrina laughed lightly, a brittle sound. "This is dramatic, Iris. 2 envelopes? Really?" "Yes," I said calmly, "because actions have addresses, and these are yours." Her smile faltered. Evan cleared his throat. "Mom, if this is about that misunderstanding—" "It's about facts," I interrupted, "not feelings. And tonight you'll see them clearly." I lifted the first envelope, A, and placed it between us. Inside is a full evidentiary record. Lab analysis confirming the presence of a Z-class sedative in my wine. Time-stamped video footage showing you, Sabrina, pouring it. And a signed witness statement verifying the act. Evan's eyes widened. "What?" I continued, voice steady. Also enclosed is a letter of submission addressed to the district attorney's office. Once delivered, it initiates an immediate inquiry into felony administration of a controlled substance with intent to incapacitate. Sabrina's hand trembled against the tablecloth. "You wouldn't—" "I would," I said. "But I haven't. Not yet." I slid envelope B forward. "This is your alternative, a settlement agreement. You'll read it carefully, with counsel if you wish. It outlines a structured resolution, mandatory therapy sessions for 12 months, monitored by a licensed panel, an independent trustee to oversee distributions from the trust, and a no-contact clause, permanent, binding, enforced." Silence held the table. The clink of dishes from nearby diners sounded distant, almost unreal. Evan swallowed hard. "And if we refuse? Then at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, envelope A is filed. I already have the courier scheduled." Sabrina leaned back, crossing her arms, defiance flickering like a candle in wind. "This is blackmail." "No," I said softly. "This is mercy. Documented." Evan rubbed his temple. "Mom, we made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes are tripping over truth," I said. "What you did was step on it deliberately." He went silent. I turned to Sabrina. "You didn't just slip something into a glass. You slipped trust into a grave. But I'm not here to bury you. I'm here to stop the digging." Her lips parted, eyes darting toward Evan for rescue. He had none left to give. Luis approached quietly, setting down a carafe of water. His expression was composed, but his voice low. "Would you like me to refill your glass, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you," I said, watching Sabrina flinch as clear liquid poured. He met her eyes, then mine, before stepping back. He knew. And now, so did they. Rachel entered moments later, discreet in a dark coat, taking a seat at a nearby table. She offered a polite nod. Her presence turned the moment from confrontation into contract. I looked at both of them. You have until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. After that, I don't negotiate. You'll choose which door you walk through, court or correction. Evan's voice cracked. What happens if we sign? You rebuild, but not at my expense. You'll attend every therapy session, report progress to the trustee, and remain at distance. No calls, no visits, only letters when approved. Healing isn't access, it's accountability. Tears welled in his eyes. And you'll forgive us? Forgiveness is a path, I said. This is the gate. Sabrina's shoulders slumped, her polished mask slipping. Why give us a choice at all? Because punishment doesn't plant trees, I replied. But responsibility does. For a long while, no one spoke. Only the music filled the space, a slow saxophone, tender and unyielding. Finally, I gathered the envelopes and placed them side by side once more. Take the night, read them both, decide who you want to be when morning comes. Evan reached out, hand trembling as he touched envelope B. We'll read, he whispered. I nodded once, then stood. Luis, please see them out. They rose, silent, subdued. Sabrina kept her eyes down. Evan looked back once, face pale but thoughtful. As they disappeared through the velvet curtains, Rachel joined me. You handled that with precision, she said. I didn't need revenge, I replied. I needed reflection. Rachel glanced at the remaining glasses, one half full, one untouched. Proof and choice, the strongest pair I know. I smiled faintly. Tomorrow, the story they started meets the ending I wrote. Outside, the night air felt lighter, almost kind. Justice, I'd learned, doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it sits quietly at a table, waiting for signatures. The morning broke clear, washed clean by night rain. Light spilled across the windows, steady and sharp, like truth after confession. I rose early, dressed in soft gray, and brewed a pot of tea. There was no rush, no tremor of nerves. The waiting was over. Today was decision day. On the table sat 2 cups, one for me, one untouched. Old habits die hard. I placed the envelopes before me, their edges aligned like opposing paths. One led to the courthouse, the other to something that might resemble redemption. I didn't know which door they'd choose, only that whichever opened would change all of us. At 8:45, the knock came, firm, hesitant. I opened the door to find Evan standing in the hallway, shoulders heavy, eyes rimmed red. Sabrina lingered behind him, clutching a small purse as if it might steady her shaking hands. Gone was the confidence, the poise, the diamond glare. In its place stood silence and shadows. Come in, I said. They stepped inside quietly. The air carried a mix of lavender from the hallway and something fragile. Remorse, perhaps, still finding its form. On the table, the envelopes waited. Evan's voice cracked first. We read everything. I nodded. And? He swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it. For what I let happen. For pretending not to see what was right in front of me. Sabrina shifted beside him, lips parting, then closing again. Finally, her voice came, small and uncertain. I didn't understand what I was doing until I saw it on paper. Seeing it typed out, it looked like someone else. But it wasn't. It was me. I studied them, not to measure guilt, but to see if truth had finally landed. It had. You can always tell. Regret looks down. Repentance looks forward. Do you understand what signing means? I asked. Evan nodded. Yes, therapy, trustee oversight, no contact. And the trust remains independent, I reminded. You'll have no control. Everything is conditioned on completion. There's no shortcut. He reached for envelope B, fingers trembling slightly. We don't want one. I slid a pen across the table. Then sign where Rachel marked. He uncapped it, pressed the nib to paper, and paused. For a long moment, he just stared at the line bearing his name. The name I gave him, the name he'd nearly tarnished. Then he signed, clean strokes. No hesitation. He passed the pen to Sabrina. Her hand shook as she wrote, each letter smaller than the last. When she finished, she exhaled, shoulders sagging under the weight of consequence. I took the envelope gently, checked the signatures, and sealed it with deliberate care. Then I looked at both of them. This doesn't erase what happened. It only begins the work of understanding it. Evan nodded. I know. I've already found a therapist. Someone Rachel recommended. Good, I said. Accountability isn't punishment. It's maintenance. Sabrina's voice was almost a whisper. Do you hate me? I thought for a moment before answering. No. Hate builds walls. I'm planting trees. Her eyes glistened. I don't know how to start again. You start by listening, I said softly. To yourself. To silence. To the people who tell you the truth, even when it stings. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder, and for the first time in months, I saw sincerity instead of strategy. Pain had peeled away their polish, leaving something raw and real. The doorbell rang again. Rachel entered, briefcase in hand, expression steady. Morning, she greeted. I take it the decision's been made? Yes, I said, passing her the sealed envelope. They've chosen B. She accepted it, gave a short, approving nod. I'll forward it to the trustee and therapist panel. You'll receive confirmation within the hour. Evan turned to Rachel. Thank you. For being fair. She met his eyes. Fairness is a mirror. What you see depends on what you bring. Sabrina dabbed at her face with a tissue. Will this ever go away? Rachel's tone was kind, not comforting. No, but it can transform. Scars don't vanish. They remind you not to repeat the wound. Silence filled the room, heavy but not hostile. This wasn't victory. It was balance. My phone buzzed. An email from the trustee, time-stamped 9:07 a.m. Settlement executed. Therapy schedule confirmed. Compliance monitoring begins next week. Another ping followed. Therapist panel acknowledged receipt. First session, Monday, 10 a.m. Rachel smiled faintly. It's official. The system holds. Evan exhaled shakily. I don't deserve another chance. Then earn it, I replied. Every day. He looked at me, eyes wet. Can I call you? Someday? Not now, I said gently. Letters first. Words are safer on paper. They give you time to think before you speak. He nodded. Then I'll write. Sabrina whispered, Thank you for not destroying us. I shook my head. You destroyed enough yourselves. I'm just giving you the blueprint to rebuild. They rose slowly, like travelers unsure of their path. At the door, Evan turned back. Mom? Yes? I missed the porch swing. Then plant your own tree, I said, and sit beneath it. He smiled weakly, then opened the door. Together, they stepped into the light, leaving behind the echo of what might still be redeemed. Rachel watched them go, then turned to me. You did what many can't. You chose justice without cruelty. I just wanted the truth to breathe, I said. She nodded. It's breathing now. As the door clicked shut, I looked at the empty teacup across the table, still warm, still waiting. Some absences aren't losses. They're spaces for new air. That afternoon, The sky opened wide and clean, as if the storm had rinsed the city of pretense. I sat by the window of my apartment, sunlight spilling over the table where the signed settlement rested. The air smelled faintly of rain and ink, the scent of things finalized. For the first time in months, my phone was silent. No demands, no manipulations, no rehearsed apologies. Just stillness, a peace earned through paperwork and patience. Rachel arrived with her usual quiet grace, setting her briefcase down before unbuttoning her coat. "I wanted to deliver this in person," she said, handing me a slim folder. Inside was the trustee's confirmation letter, embossed seal, official, signature. Compliance commenced. Account reallocation completed. Oversight established. Beneath it lay another note from the therapy panel. Sabrina Whitaker, enrolled. Evan Whitaker, enrolled. Their names printed in clean black type, not headlines of disgrace, but entries of renewal. I ran my fingers over the paper. So, it's all real now. "It's more than real," Rachel said. "It's functioning. The system you built is doing exactly what you intended, protecting what matters, correcting what can be corrected." I smiled faintly. Proof that law isn't just defense, it's design. Rachel returned the smile. "And you've designed a masterpiece of restraint." She moved to the counter where 2 glasses sat drying, one for her, one for me. "You've been drinking water again," she noted, filling hers from the carafe. "Every drop tastes cleaner now," I said softly. "Fear distorts flavor." We sat at the table, sunlight painting gold across the wood. The signed envelope rested nearby, the ink already absorbed. Decisions sealed and settled. Rachel sipped her water, then leaned back. "You know, most people don't put the tool back." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "They use justice like a weapon. Once they win, they keep swinging. You didn't." Her words settled deep, like pebbles sinking in clear water. "I never wanted to hurt them," I said. "Just stop the harm. Justice isn't noise. It's a tool you put back when you're done." She nodded. "And that's why it works." We talked a little longer, about ordinary things, the weather, a new book she'd started. There was comfort in conversation, not wrapped in defense. Before she left, Rachel reached into her briefcase again and handed me a small envelope. "From the bank," she explained. "Final confirmation. The Evergreen Foundation is fully operational." I opened it carefully. Inside, a printed email. "Your first grant has been processed. 43 seniors fed tonight through shade tables." The words blurred slightly as my eyes stung. 43 people. 43 warm meals served under lights that didn't accuse, just illuminated. Rachel rose, slipping into her coat. "You turned betrayal into bread," she said. "That's no small miracle." After she left, the apartment fell into gentle quiet. Outside, the sun filtered through drifting clouds, the light shifting like pages turning. I walked to the chair by the window, the one without a nameplate. I'd chosen it deliberately. No engraving, no title, just a simple seat under a tall potted tree that stretched toward the glass. Its leaves shimmered in the afternoon light, whispering faint approval. Lowering myself into it, I breathed deeply, feeling the curve of the wood beneath my palms. Sturdy, unassuming, built to last. This was the seat I'd earned. Not one of power, but of perspective. From my bag, I drew the old pill bottle, the one that had once held proof of danger. Now, washed and empty, it glinted harmlessly. I set it on the table beside the trustee letter, its label peeled clean. A relic of what vigilance can save. Beside it, I placed a small framed printout of the email. Your gift fed 43 seniors tonight. The image made me think of my husband, how he used to say the only way to honor a storm is to build shelter after it passes. He would have liked this foundation, quiet, practical, generous. Through the window, people moved along the sidewalks below. Strangers, each carrying their own unseen reckonings. None would ever know the story told across this table, and that was how it should be. Justice wasn't spectacle, it was stewardship. I reached for my glass, lifted it to the light, and watched the water catch the sun. Pure, uncolored, without distortion. Once, I'd believed security came from ownership. Now, I knew better. It came from clarity. From knowing when to hold on, and when to hand things back to the world improved. A breeze slipped through the window crack, stirring the leaves of the tree beside me. I smiled, tracing one with my fingertips. Shade, not statue. That was the promise. The clock chimed softly, marking the hour. Another day closed, not with confrontation, but with calm. I gathered the papers neatly, slipped them into a drawer, and turned the key. Proof had done its job. It didn't need to stay in sight. Outside, the sky glowed pale gold, and the city carried on, unaware, unburdened. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded loosely in my lap, and whispered into the quiet. Justice served. Tool returned. The room held still, warm and bright, a sanctuary built from silence and truth. The next morning arrived gentle and unhurried, sunlight stretching across the room like forgiveness in motion. The city stirred below my window, unaware that somewhere above its rhythm, a mother was learning how to breathe differently, not with fear, not with control, but with release. On the table beside me sat a single glass of water, clear and still. It caught the light from the window and threw it back in soft ripples across the wood. No shadows, no residue, just purity. For weeks, that glass had been a symbol of danger, of trust tampered with. Now it was simply water again, ordinary, honest, unchanged in its nature. I reached out, wrapped my fingers around its stem, and felt the cool assurance of something transparent. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Mom, the therapist said we should start writing letters. I wanted this to be the first. I don't expect answers. Just honesty. I'm sorry for forgetting who taught me integrity in the first place. No grand speeches, no rehearsed regret. Just a son. Beginning. I smiled faintly. There had been a time when I might have called immediately, let emotion rush ahead of reason. But wisdom, like healing, moves at its own pace. Some conversations must find their way to paper before they ever reach a voice. Typed slowly, choosing every word with the same care I gave every contract, every lesson, every lullaby long ago. Dear Evan, I received your letter. I believe apology is a door, not a destination. Walk through it carefully. Let the air remind you what truth feels like. Let silence teach you what noise never could. I'm not angry. I'm rebuilding. So must you. Then I added a line I'd carried in my heart since the night everything cracked. A compass for him and for me. Build with me, not out of me. I reread it twice before pressing send. The phone chimed again moments later, but I didn't rush to read the reply. I'd said what needed saying. Some words deserved to rest before they're answered. Leaning back, I let my eyes wander across the room. The documents neatly stored. The foundation charter framed on the wall. The chair without a nameplate. The small tree by the window stretching toward the light. Every object, once a placeholder for pain, had become a symbol of purpose. People often talk about forgiveness as if it's a feeling, something warm that arrives all at once. But it isn't. It's architecture. It's rebuilding trust, brick by honest brick, with boundaries as mortar. The doorbell rang. A courier stood outside, holding a small package. Delivery for Mrs. Whitaker. I signed, thanked him, and brought it inside. No sender listed, just a clean white box. Inside, wrapped in tissue, sat a photograph. It was the porch swing from the old estate, freshly painted, sunlight caught in the wood grain. A note tucked beside it in Evan's handwriting read, "I planted a tree beside it, for shade." Tears welled, not from sorrow, but from the quiet recognition of something beginning to mend. I placed the photo on the windowsill beside my glass. The two images, water and wood, clarity and growth, belong together. Outside, a soft breeze stirred the leaves of the potted tree, its reflection mingling with sunlight across the floor. I thought of my husband, of every quiet moment when he'd trusted me to guide what we'd built. I hoped, wherever he was, he could see that trust still stood, reshaped perhaps, but never broken beyond repair. I lifted the glass, letting light refract through it like memory filtered by grace. The world didn't need to know what it took to arrive here. The battles fought in silence, the tears traded for signatures, the nights spent choosing peace over pride. Justice had been done, yes, but more than that, understanding had been born. As I set the glass back down, I whispered the line that had become my anchor through it all, a truth I wanted echoing in every corner of this new life. I won't be a statue. I'll be shade. Because statues demand admiration. Shade offers rest. And mothers, true mothers, do not exist to be placed on pedestals or forgotten in marble. They exist to teach, to shelter, to stand when standing is hardest. The clock ticked softly, marking not an ending, but a rhythm renewed. I folded the tissue paper from the package, placed it neatly in a drawer, and returned to the window. The sunlight had shifted again, warmer now, touching everything it met with forgiveness unspoken. Some stories don't end in triumph or tragedy. They end in truth, clean as water, steady as shade. I smiled, watching the breeze lift a single leaf from the tree, letting it fall gently, gracefully, without fear. When my daughter-in-law left that night, the waiter leaned in and whispered, quiet enough that only I could hear. "Ma'am," he said, glancing at my untouched glass, "she slipped something into your drink." Those words rewrote everything I thought I knew. 20 minutes later, I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was planning. In those 20 minutes, I learned that silence, when guided by clarity, becomes strategy. I sealed the glass, called the lawyer, marked the time. Each action, small as a breath, became a step toward truth. And now, months later, I stand in the same kitchen where that plan began, morning light filtering through the curtains like forgiveness made visible. The clock ticks steady. The glass on the table gleams clean and empty. Justice, I've learned, doesn't always roar in courtrooms. Sometimes it whispers across signatures, speaks through witness statements, and lingers in the soft hum of a fridge beside fresh flowers. I open the drawer, the one lined with careful order. Inside lie the relics of that night and every choice after it. The lab report, time-stamped. The signed affidavit, ink dark and unshaken. The video still, a single frame where betrayal met exposure. Beside them rests the foundation charter, embossed in green, steady as oak. Evergreen Foundation. Beneath the title, my handwritten line, shade, not statue. It's more than paperwork. It's proof that pain can become purpose if you let it breathe long enough. I close the drawer gently. The world outside my window stirs. Buses passing, children laughing, the ordinary miracle of a city moving forward. I smile because I am moving with it. On the counter sits a vase of lavender, a gift from the food pantry's director. A note tucked beside it reads, "Your gift fed 43 seniors last night. Thank you for building shade." I trace the words with my fingertip. Feeding others had always been the quiet dream behind the estate. Funny how loss finally cleared space for giving. A soft ping draws my attention. An email from Rachel. Trustee reports steady compliance. Therapy attendance confirmed. Both progressing. Proud of your restraint. Restraint. The word feels less like sacrifice now, more like strength. There was a time I thought justice meant winning. Now I know it means walking away with your integrity intact. I pour a fresh glass of water, watch the sunlight dance through it. No wine, no risk, just clarity. Sometimes, victory tastes like clean water. Across the room, my phone buzzes again. A new message from Evan. A new sapling's taken root beside the porch swing. Sabrina planted it this morning. We named it Grace. I pause, letting the words settle. Some people apologize once, others grow their apologies, leaf by leaf. I type back slowly. Keep watering it. Every day. Growth is proof of care. Then I set the phone down, slip into my coat, and open the door to the day waiting beyond. The hallway smells faintly of lemon polish and early coffee, the scent of renewal. Downstairs, the city breathes steady, unbothered by old scars. The world rarely pauses for private reckonings, and maybe that's mercy. It lets you begin again without spectacle. As I step outside, a breeze lifts my hair. Across the street, under the shade of a young maple, a woman sits reading. The light dapples over her book, calm and kind. I watch for a moment, then keep walking, shoes clicking soft against the pavement. Every echo reminds me. Chapters don't close with noise. They close with steps forward. 20 minutes. That's all it took to choose evidence over outrage, action over accusation. 20 minutes to turn poison into proof and grief into a foundation. 20 minutes to become the woman who would not break, but bend toward the light instead. If you ever find yourself standing before a shattered trust, remember, you don't have to fight loud. You just have to move smart. Because sometimes the strongest sound in the room is the quiet click of a drawer closing on finished business. I pause at the corner, glance up at the sky, bright, unclouded. The day is young, the air clean. Justice served, tool returned, story told. I take a sip from my glass, the water crisp and clear, and whisper to myself one last time, some victories taste like clean water. Then I walk on.